All right, folks, time to talk about the Georgia indictment. I know I played hooky yesterday and talked about YouTuber drama, but today we are back to the fallout from Fulton County, Georgia. Fulton County, where I believe, wasn't that where they were hiding ballots under the table and waiting for everyone to go home before they pulled them out and started stuffing the ballot boxes? Good times, good times. I'm glad to see that Fulton County is finally prosecuting some folks over what happened in the 2022 election. But surprise, surprise, it's not the people who actually were stuffing the ballot boxes. It actually is the people who were raising concerns about the ballot boxes being stuffed. It is, as always in America, it's those who point out the problems. It's the whistleblowers, the messengers. Those are who are to blame. They're always the problem, whether it's Julian Assange or in this case, Trump and company. And so now that I've had some more time to digest the indictment and everything, it really is quite interesting if you look at the criminal actions cited by the grand jury in this indictment. They were acts like tweets, not even mean tweets, just regular tweets where Trump said, hey, you should watch these hearings going on in Georgia about election fraud. It's very interesting. And the indictment cites, that and other seemingly innocuous acts as acts in, in furtherance of a conspiracy. A conspiracy to do what? I guess hack our election. And so the grand jury has essentially a theory about a conspiracy that was perpetrated by Trump and company, Trump and 18 others. In the olden days, we called this a conspiracy theory, but when your conspiracy lines up with what the state wants you to believe, well, then it's not a conspiracy theory. It's only a conspiracy theory if it's a conspiracy in which the state is conspiring against the people. If it's Trump, though, it's a conspiracy fact. And so really what this looks like to me is just a retread of Russia collusion. But instead of being accused of colluding with Vladimir Putin, now Trump is accused of colluding with Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows. And as clownish as these charges are, I must reiterate, because people don't seem to understand this, that these charges are very real. They fully intend to prosecute Trump. In fact, the judge, just an hour or so ago, before the time that I'm recording this, set a trial date for March the 3rd. So this is going to happen before the primaries are over even. They're going to lock up Trump. They won't even let him go have the GOP convention. He's going to be nominated for president from a prison cell. And I guess Trump supporters are in denial. I'm not saying they're in denial because, they need to abandon Trump. That's not what I'm saying. Quite the opposite. It's that Trump is in mortal danger, literally mortal danger, because they are sentencing him to die in prison. If they put him away, he will not live to serve out his full sentence, whatever they make it, because they're going to load him up with charges. He's like 75 or something now? Yeah, adding all this other stuff. I mean, Trump's going to be, he's an old man. They put him away. It will be for the rest of his life. But I guess the base of his supporters are just so convinced that he always wins, that this just can't touch him, that it won't hurt him, that somehow it won't matter, that the charges will disappear. And I've seen this, as I keep saying, from very intelligent people who believe this. And I just don't understand it. They impeached him twice. They tried to smear him as a Russian spy. YouTube is cracking down on speech again, so I guess I can't say they conducted an election in such a way that he could never win. Let's put it that way. Okay, I won't use the S word because we are on YouTube still. Thankfully, this channel hasn't been... I haven't gotten a strike in a long time. I'd like to keep it that way. But you folks know what these people are capable of. And when you look at the January 6ers, who are not Trump, these are just people who are proxies for Trump in the minds of the establishment. These are people who they hate because they voted for Trump. That's why the January 6ers were treated so harshly. Just because they like Trump. How do you think that these same people would treat Trump himself if given the opportunity? They locked away grandmas in prison for staying inside of velvet ropes and going on a tour of the Capitol. Those are the things that these people have been sentencing folks to prison, years in prison over. A bunch of people who objectively did nothing wrong. Trump is the big bad to these people. And so they're going to do whatever they want. They're going to do everything to him, probably short of put him in front of a firing squad, just because I don't think that there are any states that still allow for you to sentence someone to a firing squad. And so obviously you look at these indictments. Yes, they're willing to just make up the law as they go. But they did the same thing with the January 6ers. The January 6ers didn't do anything wrong, and if you just look at it common sense-wise. But what they did was they said, well, let's just throw whatever crimes we can at them, and we know that they'll be convicted because the jury pool hates them. Well, you know who these same jury pools in Atlanta and Washington and New York City, well, there's also Miami, but Miami is kind of the outlier. That's the one place where Trump has a chance. But these other three places, Trump has no chance. All these jury pools, they hate Trump supporters. But you know what that they hate even more than a Trump supporter is Trump himself. If he goes to trial, he will be convicted. It's that simple. And in Georgia, this is where he has the biggest problem. Georgia, the governor has no pardon power. There is a bureaucratic panel that considers pardons for prisoners. That panel cannot consider a pardon until 5 years after someone's been sentenced. And I think that is also, like, you can't file an appeal during that time. You have to just sit there for 5 years in prison. 5 years is going to be a long time for Trump, and even still, once he can try and appeal to the pardon board, who staffs the pardon board? Bureaucrats who hate Trump. So he will never get a pardon in Georgia. If he's convicted in Georgia, that's a death sentence. And what did they do in Georgia? They filed this like a RICO, or as a RICO case. They're prosecuting Trump like they would prosecute a mob boss. So what they did was they took a bunch of his lieutenants, and they charged them too, and what they're trying to do is get these folks to start turning on each other. So Trump needs all 18 of these other people who were charged along with him on his team, and they all need to be coordinating with each other, coordinating their defenses, and, fighting this as a team. But Trump is not doing that. Trump has singled out one person in particular, Jen Ellis, who was one of his attorneys, very prominent, during the 2020 election contests. Jen Ellis has not endorsed Trump for president in 2024. Now, who cares who Jen Ellis endorses for president? Does anyone know who she is aside from being Trump's lawyer? No, but apparently if you're Trump's lawyer, or ex-lawyer now, because she no longer works for him, you need to endorse Trump. And if you don't, oh well, you deserve to rot in prison. So Trump thinks that he and 17 of these people, they're totally innocent. But Jen Ellis, she's guilty. She doesn't deserve a defense, and we shouldn't help her. Well, guess who's going to be the first one of these folks to flip to the Fulton County prosecutor and testify against Trump to get themselves like a real plea bargain. Trump, they're not going to offer a plea bargain. People say, well, Trump could plead down. No. Well, the prosecutor doesn't have to offer you any kind of a plea deal. If the prosecutor knows they're ironclad and they're going to be able to convict you if you go to trial, the plea bargain will be the same or the plea will be the same as if you got convicted normally. They will not offer you a better deal. This is what they did with January 6th. These people were not offered plea bargains. They said, if you can either plead now and skip a trial, and we're going to ask for the same sentence regardless. We're going to charge you with the same exact stuff. We're not going to give you anything off by saying you're not going to go to trial. You can either plead now, you can either be guilty now or guilty later, but the charges will not change, the sentence will not change. We will give you nothing. And so they'll do the same for Trump. But if they can get one of these folks to flip, like let's say Jenna Ellis, who was Trump's lawyer, if they can get Jenna Ellis to read a script and say, everyone knew that the election hadn't been stolen, and yes, we were trying to change the results afterwards because we wanted to overthrow American democracy, she will say whatever they tell her to say in court if it gets her off. Because my guess is Jenna Ellis probably knows she can't beat these charges. Certainly not without Trump's help, and if she's being, locked out from everyone else and she's persona non grata. Her job is going to be to save her own skin. That's what any rational person would do. Trump already hates you. You have no loyalty to he has no loyalty to you. You have no reason to show loyalty to him. And so what Trump should be trying to do is specifically try and court this person and anyone else who's on the edge of his sphere of influence, and bring them in close to him to make sure that nobody flips. Because guess what? That's what happened to the mob. That's what destroyed the mob, was guys like Sammy the Bull started to flip, and they turned on the family. And so, yes, the case is nonsense against Trump. All of these cases are. That doesn't mean he won't lose. I mean, have these folks not paid attention to any of the January 6 trials? Have they not paid attention to American history? Are they not aware that the Supreme Court in the 1930s ruled that it was illegal to grow your own food because it violated the quota laws? And that's why we had starvation during the Great Depression, because people were not allowed to grow their own food because that was unfair competition. Courts will create crazy rulings. The courts ruled that your local government could forcibly sterilize you. Forced sterilization is considered legal and constitutional in the United States. Hell, I mean, the Bureau of Indian Affairs had a policy well into the 70s, I believe, of offering free abortions to Native Americans, in which, as a part of the abortion, they would also sterilize the women. And you think the idea that they would prosecute Trump and throw him in prison just to get him off the ballot, just to make sure that he can't become president, you think that's out of the realm of possibility, that, that would never happen? That, you're fear-mongering? You must be a simp? I don't want to vote for DeSantis over Trump. I don't. At this point, I do feel safer voting for Trump. But there's only a handful of swing states that will decide this election. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, 3 states that Trump already won. Nevada, I think, is going to be very important. Arizona and Georgia, of course. I think that it's almost a guarantee that Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin will wipe Trump off the ballot. He will not be an option if you live in those states, or any blue state, because whether it's the Secretary of State, the Governor, the Attorney Generals, it varies who controls elections in these states. In all 3 of those states, those positions are controlled by Democrats. And the Democrats are going to cite, the 16th I can't even remember what amendment that said that, Confederates can't run for public office. They're going to say, well, Trump was convicted of an insurrection in trying to overthrow our election. And so we can't have him. He's not eligible to be on the ballot. We're going to take him off the ballot in our state. Sure, the red states won't do that, I would hope, for the most part. Who knows? Maybe Mississippi could do that. I could totally see, because Mississippi is so cucked. I could see Mississippi taking Trump off the ballot and saying, well, he's an insurrectionist. Same with South Carolina. So at what point do people start to realize this? I saw a poll that said only 22% of Republicans think that Trump will be convicted of anything, meaning they think he's going to get off. This is going to be a nothing burger. And that tells me that they still don't understand. That is, 78% of Republicans don't understand the situation we're living in. They think, oh, these allegations against Trump are crazy. You know, it's not true. It's a witch hunt. So therefore, obviously he'll get off. No, that's not how it works. They still think that our judges are just. They think that we have a real justice system. They think that juries won't convict someone unless guilt is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. All of these things are myths. There are rare glimmers of hope, with things like the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. But those are the exception, not the rule. None of us should have been sitting on the edge of our seat waiting for the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict because it was obvious. But in today's America, you expect people like Kyle Rittenhouse to become victims of political persecution. The fact that he was charged at all was an example of persecution. But he was lucky that he wasn't convicted by the jury. And he was in a far less left-wing jurisdiction than where Trump has been charged. In fact, I think in Kenosha, Trump didn't do that bad. He still lost in Kenosha. But he didn't do that bad. It was probably more akin to like Miami. I'm not looking at the stats right now from 2020. But my point is, it's not 90-10 like in Washington, D.C., or 85-15 like in Manhattan, or 75-25 in Fulton County. Fulton County is a place where 3 out of 4 people want to get Trump at all costs. They don't care what his defense is. They know he's a bad man. He must be stopped. And this is their chance to get Trump. And I believe that's a quote from the former Republican lieutenant governor of Georgia. This is our opportunity to get Trump. So even the Republicans in Georgia want to take him down. And that's why I say, Brian Kemp, it's probably lucky that he doesn't have the pardon power, because even if he did, I don't think he would pardon Trump. I don't think he wants to. I think he hates Trump with every fiber of his being and everything he represents. When Brian Kemp did that ad where he pulled up in his mid-90s Power Stroke, he wasn't trying to be like you. He was mocking you. That's what he was doing. He said, "I know how to deal with these hicks. I'll step out of my dually, and I'll turn the engine off the old-fashioned way with a key." With a key, and then I'll stand there in my ad and tell these dumb rednecks how much I feel their pain and how I'm going to stand up for them. But Brian Kemp is a different topic for a different day. In fact, I can't even picture his face. When I try to think of him, I'm seeing that guy in Virginia. But anyway, Kemp does not have pardon power, so he's not relevant in this conversation. So I would like to see, and maybe we won't find out until they actually do sentence Trump to prison. Maybe that's when it'll sink in for folks. And by then, at some point, people are going to wake up and they're going to be much angrier than I am. The rabid Trump supporter should be the ones most enraged by this, not me. And yet they're all far more sanguine. And as soon as they get Trump and they finally get him, guess who's next? Remember that old meme that the boomer cons like to circulate? They say that they hate me, but they really hate you. I'm just in the way. Yes, actually, when they finally get Trump, they're going to go after the rest of us. Any politician who is remotely friendly to our values, they will be under indictment. They will be chased out of office. The GOP will be complicit in this. And individual people, who gain popularity online, like this new country music guy, cancel culture will become prison culture. Right now, it's just social ostracization. I can't speak. I swear I haven't been drinking. But then it will become debanking, as we see in other countries, like in Britain with Nigel Farage. And we've already seen in this country with some more dissident candidates, like the woman who ran for Joe Biden's old Senate seat in Delaware as a Republican. She was debanked. Kanye West was debanked. Pretty soon, the rest of us will start to be debanked. That will become a very common phenomenon. And then, the next step after that is political prosecutions. So that's where we're headed in this country. At some point, the rest of the right will wake up to this, and by that I mean the average voter. I think currently they're in denial. That's why you only have 22% Republicans saying Trump will be convicted of anything. And I guarantee you that 22%, that's mostly non-Trump supporters, I bet. Because Trump, we know, doesn't have 100% support in the primary. There are some people who, a handful of people who want someone else. I bet that 22%, at least 90% of them, are people who in the primary support someone other than Trump. So I think it's Trump supporters who are in for the rude awakening here. And it'll be interesting to see their reactions. So with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.